The concept to consider in this lecture is cell. Actually, cell has always been the main thing that is present in every organism. That is, for something or an object to be considered to be living, to be considered as an organism, that particular thing must actually contain cell. And that is why cell is being referred to as a basic, that is the basic something that must be present in an organism. The structural, that is the structure that is present in an organism, and the functional unit of life, that is that particular thing that carries out the function and it is a unit, that is one. So cell is being regarded as a basic structural functional unit of life. It contains the fundamental molecules of life, that is those molecules that are important, that are the fundamental for life. These molecules are present, and cell is also being regarded as the building block, that is the building block, the main thing that is important in the building of every living thing. And it carries out a specialized cells or cell carries out specialized functions, that is the different functions. Now, in view of trying to explain the links between cell and living organisms, certain research were carried out by scientists, and these the outcomes uh, were concluded to be cell theory. So the cell theory is what is being described as the basis of providing explanation of the links between cell and all living things. It is actually the basis of understanding all physiological processes at the microscopic level, that is at the cellular level. So we're going to look at the contributors of a cell theory, that is what they say or what they found out about cell and what their conclusion or their outcome is. The first person that I have here is a Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke in 1665 was the first person to describe a cell, because he observed and find out that there are different chambers in a cork when he examined that under a microscope. So he discovered that there are certain things that are chambers, different chambers, when you look at a cork under microscope. Now, in 1838, Matthias Sweden find out that and find out that all plants, they contain cells. That is, all plant tissues are made up of cells. That was what he found out. Now, another person, that is Theodore Swan in 1839, he discovered that all animal tissues are composed of cells. So, while the other person, Sweden, found out that all plant tissues are made up of cells, Theodore Swan, found out that all animal tissues are composed of cells. Then Rudolf Finhoek in 1855 found out, in his own contribution of finding out or carrying out research studies on cells, what he find out is that uh, he found out and deduced that there is no cell that just arose on its own, that every cell arose from pre-existing cell. That is, there is what we call a pre-existing cell that a cell must have arose from, and this is referred to as a omnicellular acellular, omnicellular acellular. That is what the Rudolf Finho in 1855 concluded upon. So from all these findings, we could deduce three main principles of cell theory. One, that all living organisms, they are made up of cell. That is, all living organisms are made up of at least a cell. That is, it may be a cell or more than one cell. from the simplest, that is the smallest organism, to the most complex organism. Then the second principle is that cell is the fundamental or the basic unit of life. The meaning of this is that cell is present in everything that is being referred to as life, and it is cell that performs all the functions that are being carried out by living organisms. Then the third principle is that all cells arose from pre-existing cell. That is, cell, you know, maybe by cell division, they came out from an existing cell. Now we're going to look at two main types of cells. All the cells in the organisms, in all the organisms, could be described or divided into two categories. And we're going to look at the basic features of each of these type of cells. The two types of cells are prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So we're going to look at the features or the characteristics of prokaryotic cells. When we talk about prokaryotic cells, they are usually very small, between 0.1 to 5 micrometer. So they are very simple. They have no nucleus. They only have a nucleoid region. That is a region where you have, things that are supposed to be present in nucleus. Then we have they normally have a DNA, which is circular in shape, and their RNA, we know DNA is a deoxyribonucleic acid, while RNA is a ribonucleic acid. So the RNA and the protein synthesis, they are present in the cytoplasm. The ribosomes are also present. The chromosomes are just one, that is the one N. They are not paired. That's what we mean by single chromosomes. Then the cell membranes and the cell wall is present. There's always a band, something that is, that's like a band that's separating the cell from the environment, from the immediate environment. So it has the cell membrane or the cell wall. Then mitochondria is not present, is absent. Then no chloroplasts. Chloroplast is not present. Cytoplasm is present because that is where you have most other things that are present within the cell. Internal organelles are sparse. That is, it doesn't prokaryotic cells, they don't have many internal organelles, especially those ones that are membrane bonded. That is, organelles that have another membrane that is binding them, separating them from the cytoplasm. So prokaryotic cells don't have this one. Usually they are organized in single cells. That is, they usually appear as one single cell, and mostly they have a flagella, what we refer to as flagella. This flagella is usually being used for movement. So in organisms that are just unicellular, that is, organisms that are made up of just one cell, they may have a flagella. This flagella is usually contain what we call flagellin, so that they will be able to move about. Then the cell division there is usually by binary fission. Examples of organisms that possess prokaryotic cells are bacteria and archaea. Now, let's look at the features of eukaryotic cells. When we talk about the eukaryotic cells are usually bigger, more complex. The size is usually between 10 and 100 micrometers. So you can see that those ones are bigger. They are usually bigger than the prokaryotic cells, and they possess nucleus with double membrane. The membrane of nucleus separates the content of nucleus from the content in the cytoplasm. DNA in eukaryotic cells are usually linear, that is, maybe like in line, like a straight line, unlike in the prokaryotic cells where they are circular in shape. The RNA synthesis occurs in the cytoplasm as well, while the protein synthesis occurs in the cytoplasm. In the other one, we know that the RNA synthesis and the protein synthesis occur in the cytoplasm. But in this case, the RNA synthesis occurs in the nucleus, while the protein synthesis occurs in the cytoplasm. The ribosomes are also present. The ribosomes are present. We have more than one chromosomes present in the eukaryotic cell, and the mitochondria are also present. The cell membrane or cell wall is also present. The cell membrane or the cell wall that is separating or that is bending or covering the cell is also present in eukaryotic cells. Chloroplasts are also present here. Internal organelles, that is organelles that are present within the cells. We have different organelles present within the cell. Usually they are organized, that is the eukaryotic cells, they could be organized as single cells, colonies, even as a multicellular. That is why we say that they are complex. Mostly they also use a flagella. They use aside flagella, they use a cilia, they use a lamellipodia, they use a philopodia for movement. So we have different types of things which the organisms or the cells, organisms that possess this type of cell can use for movement. Cell division here is by mitosis, like you have budding, you have fusion, and it's also by meiosis. So they have or the undergo cell division by mitosis and meiosis. Examples of organisms that are present or that are eukaryotic cells, we have a lot of organisms in this category, like the protists, the fungi, the plants, the animals. All these ones are examples of eukaryotic organisms with a eukaryotic cell. Now, let's look at this pictures. The pictures is showing this eukaryotic cell and the prokaryotic cell. The one that is showing with one green and centrally placed label something there, that is a eukaryote. Is a eukaryote, while the other one showing the flagella, two flagella there, that one is prokaryotic. So we can say that looking at the eukaryotic cell, we say that the eukaryotic cell is more complex. It has more organelles within. That is, it has so many things, so many organelles like the ones that I've mentioned within there. While the prokaryotic cell, which is the one below towards the right, does not have as much organelles within as we have in the case of the eukaryotes. So the eukaryotic cells are usually more complex than the prokaryotic cells. Now we're going to look at the functions of each of the organelles. That is, those organelles, what are their functions? What functions do they perform? Now, looking at the nucleus, the nucleus is like the heart. That is, the nucleus is like our heart. It's the heart in human beings controls the activities of the body. So the nucleus within the cell, within any cell, whether in the especially in the eukaryotic that has the cell, is the control center. That's the control center where all the activities that take place within the cell are being coordinated. So the nucleus within the cell controls and coordinates activities of the cell. Activities such as growth, cell division, and some other activities that we can think of. Now, the cytoplasm is also called or being referred to as the cytostol. Cytostol is like it's semi-liquid, it's semi-fluid. Not when we say semi-fluid, that is, it lies between solid and a liquid. It is not really it is not really liquid. So this one is present within the cell, and it's medium where the organelles within the cell are suspended. Then the next one is a cytoskeleton. Cytoskeleton is a long fiber that is present within the cytoplasm. So it makes up the cell's structural framework. It gives the cell shape and use in cell division and movement. So it supports the activities of the cell of the cytoplasm by giving the cell shape, framework, structural framework, that is the structural framework of the cell. Then we have the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus transports, it modifies and packages protein within the cell to the targeted destination. That is, after the protein has been prepared or has been produced, the Golgi body will now modifies it and packages it, transport it to the next destination or the targeted place within the cell. Now, the next one is endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum, we have two types within them. We have the rough endoplasmic reticulum and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The difference between the two of them is that on the rough endoplasmic reticulum, we have proteins, protein droplets or protein particles. Let me put it that way on rough endoplasmic reticulum, because the rough endoplasmic reticulum synthesizes proteins, while the smooth endoplasmic reticulum just folds up the proteins. But aside this, the general function that they perform, the two of them perform, is that they detoxifies the cell from harmful substances and also store calcium. That is, the substances within the cell that are poisonous, that are harmful, will be detoxified by endoplasmic reticulum. And at the same time, endoplasmic reticulum also stores calcium. Now, the next one is a lysosome. Lysosome breaks down waste materials, foreign invaders within the cell, and old cell parts. In fact, the lysosome acts as the cell digestive system. That is, all those substances that are or materials that are not good, that are present within the cell. What the lysosome does is that it helps to break those substances or these materials down to a form or smaller molecules that they could be used or that could be used, reused within the cell. That is, to the smaller particles that could be make use of instead of being harmful to the cell or destroying the cell. Now, the next one is mitochondria. Mitochondria for plural, mitochondria for singular. The mitochondrion is usually being referred to as the powerhouse, because its mitochondrion generates energy. So all of them, we have more than one within the cell. All of them together, at each one of them generates energy for the cell. In fact, it is the mitochondria within the cell that actually produce energy for the body. So the energy that is being produced by each of the cells within the body of an organism that is being produced by the mitochondria, each mitochondria of the mitochondria within the cell, they are the ones that produces energy that the cell will be required for all the necessary activities. At the same time, they are the energy that will be used by the body of an organism, that is that an organism needs to function, to carry out all the activities. Now, the next one, the next organelle or part of a cell that I have here is a plasma membrane. The plasma membrane protects the cell. It's the membrane that is found outside the cell. It surrounds the cell. So because it surrounds the cell, it acts as selective permeable membrane. That is, it allows, when we say selective, it selects to allow some membrane, some substances to pass from the immediate environment of the cell into the internal environment of the cell, and also allows some things to leave the internal environment to the outside, those that are necessary. And so it constitutes a barrier, is a selective barrier that separates the cell, the interior of the cell, that is the inside of the cell, from the external environment. So with this ones, the plasma membrane acts as a protective covering. It protects the cell. So these are the few organelles of the cell and the functions that they carry out. So whether they are present, whether these organelles are present in the prokaryotic, whether that is if the cell is prokaryotic or if it is eukaryotic, as long as those organelles are present, they perform the same function. Thank you for listening.